It is a gray Monday morning, and Felicia is driving to a job she no longer needs. She has more than enough money saved to retire comfortably right now, today. And yet she keeps clocking in, year after year, for one single mistaken reason. Felicia believes she cannot touch her retirement money until she turns 59 and a half. So she is grinding out 7 extra years, guarding money she thinks is locked away. 7 years is not a rounding error. It is a huge, irreplaceable chapter of a life. 7 years of her one and only life, surrendered to a belief that is simply not true. Because here is the costly age myth that delays millions of retirements by years. The belief that your retirement savings are completely frozen until age 59 and a half. The best myths always contain just enough truth to feel completely believable. There's a small kernel of truth inside it, which is exactly why it fools everyone. Pull money from a traditional account too early, and yes, you often owe a 10% penalty. But that penalty is not a locked door. It is just one door, and there are several others. There are completely legal, penalty-free ways to reach your money years before 59 and a half. The money was never truly locked. Only Felicia's belief about it ever was. This is not about spending recklessly or gaming the system in any way. It is about using the accounts exactly as the rules were written to allow. The people who retire early are not breaking rules. They are simply reading all of them. By the end, you will hold every legal key to your own money, years ahead of schedule. So today we shatter the age myth that quietly steals years from careful savers. Picture Felicia at her desk, watching a younger coworker post vacation photos. She has the money to be on that beach. She just does not believe she is allowed. That gap between what she can afford and what she believes is the whole tragedy. And it is a gap made entirely of a misunderstanding she never thought to question. First, let us be precise about what the rule actually says, because precision matters here. The tax code discourages rating retirement accounts early with a 10% penalty. That penalty exists, so people do not casually drain their future for a new boat today. It is a reasonable guardrail, and for casual early withdrawals, it does its job. But somewhere along the way, a guardrail turned into a myth of a locked vault. People stopped hearing avoid careless withdrawals and started hearing you cannot retire early. And that misunderstanding is one of the most expensive in all of personal finance. Because the price of this myth is not paid in dollars, it is paid in years of your life. Someone who hits their number at 52 might work until 60 for absolutely no reason. And unlike a money mistake, this one can never be earned back or repaired. You can always make more money. You can never make more of your 50s. That is what makes this particular myth quietly one of the cruelest of all. 8 years of freedom, health, and time traded away for a rule they never actually read. The tragedy is that the escape routes are legal, well-documented, and used every single day. These are not obscure secrets buried in some forgotten corner of the tax code. They are printed plainly, discussed openly, and used by ordinary savers every year. The only reason they feel like secrets is that most people stop reading too soon. Early retirees have quietly used these bridges for decades to unlock their money. Consider just how much a single year of early retirement is actually worth. It is a year of your best health, your energy, and time with people you love. Now multiply that by 7, and you see the true price this one myth charges. It is not a small mistake. It is potentially the most expensive belief of your life. So, this is not a loophole or a trick. It is simply the rest of the rulebook. Let us keep it fair and specific. Here is exactly what the rules actually allow. Think of the 10% penalty like a toll booth on just one road out of town. Most people see that one toll and conclude the entire town is sealed off. But a toll on one road does not mean you are trapped. It means take a different road. The other roads are free, legal, and clearly marked for anyone who bothers to look. The myth is simply the belief that the tolled road is the only road that exists. To see this clearly, let us follow Felicia against a coworker. Meet Brooke. Felicia and Brooke are the same age, with nearly identical savings and salaries. Both reach the number they need to retire comfortably at exactly 52. Felicia believed the myth, so she kept working, sure her money was frozen until 59. Brooke did one thing differently. She actually read the rest of the rules. She discovered the perfectly legal bridges that carry you from early retirement to 59. So Brooke handed in her notice at 52, calm and completely within the law. Felicia clocked in for 7 more years, guarding money she could have used all along. For 7 long years, the two women lived in completely different worlds. Brooke sent postcards from mountains while Felicia answered emails in a gray office. Both had earned the exact same freedom. Only one of them had claimed it. Same savings, same age, same finish line. One walked through the door, one stood outside it. Meet their younger coworker Leon, who assumes early retirement is only for the ultra-rich. Leon thinks the rules simply do not allow ordinary people to retire before 60. But the rules allow it for everyone. Most people just never learn the second half of them. Because this myth is not about money, it is about a door people never tried to open. There is not just one key on this ring. There are several for every situation. Some open the door at 55, some at any age, some with a little planning. Whatever your age and accounts, at least one of these keys almost certainly fits. So let us open that door together and hand you every key the rulebook offers. Notice that Brooke was never wealthier or luckier than Felicia in any way. She simply refused to accept a rumor as if it were a settled law. That single habit, checking instead of assuming, bought her 7 years of life. The gap between the two women was never money. It was a single piece of knowledge. Because the freedom you thought was decades away may already be sitting in your hands. Before Brooke retired, she brought her plan to a financial advisor to confirm it was legal. She half expected him to tell her the whole idea was a fantasy. Instead, he nodded and said these strategies are used by careful early retirees constantly. Brooke walked out realizing the only thing that had ever locked her money was a rumor. So let us walk through the exact keys the advisor showed her, one at a time. Key number 1 is the simplest of all, and it is called the Rule of 55. If you leave your job in the year you turn 55 or later, a special door opens. You can withdraw from that employer's workplace retirement plan with no early penalty. No penalty, no 5-year waiting period, and no complicated math to set it up. It applies to the plan at the job you just left, not to your old rolled over accounts. So the timing of when you roll money over suddenly matters a great deal. There is no 5-year runway to plan and no rigid schedule to lock into. You simply separate from that job and the penalty-free access begins right away. For anyone in their late 50s, it is often the cleanest key on the entire ring. Brooke left her job at 55 and tapped that plan penalty-free from day one. There is even a version for certain public safety workers starting at 50. So depending on your job, the door may open even earlier than 55. The details vary by plan, which is exactly why it pays to actually check yours. A 5-minute look at your plan rules can reveal a door you never knew existed. This single rule is the easiest early access key for anyone retiring in their late 50s. Let us make the timing crystal clear, because one small mistake can close this door. The rule only works for the plan at the job you are actually leaving, so if you roll that plan into an IRA too soon, you lose the Rule of 55 entirely. The fix is simple. Just leave the money in the workplace plan until you need it. One small piece of timing knowledge unlocks years of penalty-free early income. It quietly erases years off the imaginary weight the myth insists you must endure. Key number 2 works at any age, even in your 40s. It is called 72T. It stands for substantially equal periodic payments, a mouthful with a simple idea. You commit to taking a fixed, calculated withdrawal from an account each year. In exchange for that commitment, the 10% early penalty is waived entirely. It lets a 45-year-old legally tap an account the myth swears is untouchable. The catch is rigidity. You must continue the payments for 5 years or until 59. Break the schedule early, and the penalties can come roaring back retroactively. Modern rules even let you split one account, using only part for the payments. That way, the rest of your money stays flexible, while a slice funds your income. It is more rigid than a Roth ladder, but it needs no 5-year head start. So for someone who wants to retire right now at any age, it can be the perfect key. So it is powerful but strict. Best for those who want steady, predictable income. Think of a 72T plan like a faucet you open and promise not to close. As long as the faucet keeps its steady, agreed drip, the penalty never applies. But shut the faucet off early, and the guard wakes up and bills you for everything. So this key rewards discipline and punishes second thoughts, which suits some savers perfectly. For an early retiree in their 40s, it can be the difference between waiting and living. Key number 3 is the favorite of the early retirement crowd, the Roth conversion ladder. It is more flexible than the others, but it takes a little planning ahead. The word ladder is perfect because you build it one rung at a time. Each rung is 1 year's conversion, and each rung matures on its own schedule. Climb the ladder steadily, and there is always a fresh rung ready under your foot. Each year, you convert a chunk of a traditional account into a Roth account. You pay ordinary income tax on each conversion, ideally during low-income early years. Then each converted amount must season, untouched for exactly 5 years. 5 years sounds long, but it is a one-time wait that pays you back forever. And you can bridge that first 5-year gap with your always accessible money. After that 5-year wait, you can withdraw that converted money penalty and tax-free. So you convert now, wait 5 years, and unlock a fresh rung of tax-free money each year. Start converting 5 years before you retire, and the first rung is ready right on time. Then each following year, another seasoned rung quietly becomes available to spend. The real beauty of the latter is how much control it gives you over taxes. You convert only as much as you want in each low-income early retirement year. So you can smooth your taxes out instead of taking one giant bill later. It rewards the patient and the organized, which describes most successful early retirees. It is a rolling, tax-efficient pipeline that can fund an early retirement indefinitely. Picture the latter like planting one fruit tree every single year for 5 years. The first tree takes 5 years to bear fruit, and that feels like a long wait. But once that first tree fruits, a new one ripens every year after, forever. So the only hard part is planting 5 years before you actually need the fruit. Plan a little ahead, and the ladder becomes a self-refilling stream of tax-free money. Brooke started her ladder at 47, and it carried her comfortably from 52 onward. Key number 4 is money that was never locked in the first place. Always accessible funds. Your Roth contributions, the money you personally put in, can come out anytime. Not the growth, just your own contributions are available with no penalty at all. A regular taxable brokerage account has no age rules on it whatsoever. You can sell and spend from it at 40, at 50, or at any age you like. And a health savings account covers medical costs tax-free at literally any age. So even healthcare, the scariest early retirement cost, has its own accessible fund. Layer these together, and a supposedly locked retirement suddenly has doors everywhere. These accounts are the perfect bridge material for the first few years of retirement. This is why the smartest savers keep a mix of account types, not just one. A blend of traditional, Roth, and taxable money gives you keys for every situation. It is called tax diversification, and it is quietly one of the most freeing strategies. You spend from the always accessible money first while the other keys mature. This is the key most people already hold but never even think to use. Even a modest taxable account can cover the very first year or two of retirement. That buys time for the other keys, like the Roth ladder, to fully mature. So you almost never need to touch the penalized path, even for a single dollar. Most people forget they even have this freely available money sitting right there. Now, the move that ties it all together. You build a bridge to 59 and a half. You do not need every account unlocked at once. You just need enough to cross the gap. The gap is only the years between when you retire and when the penalty disappears anyway. For Brooke, retiring at 52, that bridge was just 7.5 short years. She used taxable savings and Roth contributions for the first stretch of the bridge. Then her Roth ladder rungs matured and carried her the rest of the way across. Notice how the myth made the whole distance look impossibly far to cross. People imagine funding decades with no access and understandably give up. But you are never funding decades. You are only funding the gap to 59. And that gap shrinks every single year you delay retirement if you ever need to. Retire at 58 and the bridge is barely 18 months long. And once she reached 59 and a half, every account simply opened on its own. This reframing is what unlocks the whole idea for most people. You are not trying to fund forever with locked money. You are just bridging a gap. And a short bridge is something almost any diligent saver can actually build. The bridge only ever had to last a few years, not a lifetime. That is the whole secret. To keep it organized, Brooke opened one plain account just for her bridge money. She could see at a glance exactly how many bridge years she had funded. Each year, one key handed off to the next, like runners in a relay race. Taxable savings first, then Roth contributions, then the maturing ladder rungs. A relay of legal keys carried her all the way to the finish line, penalty-free. Suddenly, the impossible-seeming early retirement becomes an ordinary planning problem. Now, here is the twist that reframes this entire costly age myth. The myth does not cost you money. Every dollar was always going to be yours. What the myth steals is far more precious than money. It steals your time. Felicia will eventually get every dollar. She will just get it 7 years too late. And time, unlike money, is the one thing no strategy can ever give back. Here is what actually happens to people who never question the myth. They work their healthiest years away, guarding a vault that was open the entire time. They do not lose the money. They lose the trips, the mornings, the freedom. They lose the version of themselves that was healthy enough to fully enjoy it. Money can wait for you. Your youth and your health simply cannot. Brooke, meanwhile, spent those same 7 years living the life the money was for. She did not have more money than Felicia. She simply had the second half of the rulebook. A spending myth costs you a little money and teaches you a quick lesson. A permission myth costs you years, and often you never even notice the theft. It hides as caution, feels like responsibility, and quietly runs your whole life. The most expensive myths are never the ones about spending. They are about permission. Felicia never needed more savings. She needed permission she already had all along. Felicia was not lazy or foolish. She was simply careful in the wrong direction. She protected her savings so fiercely that she protected herself out of living. Her caution was real. It was just pointed at a threat that did not actually exist. The myth turned a careful, admirable saver into a prisoner of her own good habits. Because a rule you assume but never read can quietly run your entire life. So the lesson is bigger than anyone's strategy. Never let an assumption go unchecked. Here is the line worth remembering. The door was never locked. Only your belief was. Imagine standing outside a house in the rain, certain the front door is locked. You never even try the handle, because someone once told you it does not open. You could stand there for years, soaked and miserable, beside an unlocked door. That is the myth in a single image. A door untried, mistaken for a door locked. All it ever took was reaching out and testing whether the belief was even true. So before you sacrifice years to a rule, make absolutely sure the rule is even real. Think about how many money myths quietly run our decisions without any evidence. We inherit rules from a coworker, a parent, a half-remembered article, and never check. And those unchecked rules can quietly cost us the most valuable years of our lives. The antidote is simple. When a rule shapes a big decision, go read the actual rule. There is a strange grief in learning you were free years before you realized it. But that same grief can become a gift if it pushes you to check every other assumption. How many other rules are you obeying that you have simply never verified? The habit of checking, once learned, quietly pays you back for the rest of your life. For many careful savers, the freedom they are waiting for has already quietly arrived. So let us turn all of this into a simple plan you can start checking this very week. First, know that the 10% penalty is real, but it is only one narrow path. The penalty applies only if you take the tolled road without using the free ones. Knowing that single fact reframes the entire question of when you can retire. Second, if you retire at 55 or later, look hard at the rule of 55. And crucially, do not roll that workplace plan into an IRA before you use it. Third, if you retire earlier, explore a 72T plan or a Roth conversion ladder. Choose the latter for flexibility or the 72T for an immediate, steady start. Fourth, remember your always accessible money, your Roth contributions and taxable accounts. Spend that freely available money first, and let the other keys mature behind it. Fifth, build a bridge only as long as the gap to 59.5 and no longer. The most important step is simply the first one. Look it up instead of assuming. One honest afternoon of reading can quietly hand you years of your life back. None of these steps require being wealthy. They only require reading past the first rule. And because taxes and timing get technical, this is a great place for one expert conversation. The rules around timing and taxes have real sharp edges if you get them wrong. A small mistake on a 72T plan or a rollover can trigger real penalties. So learning the strategies yourself, then confirming with a pro, is the safest path. A single planning session can make sure your bridge is built correctly and safely. Felicia eventually learned the truth and retired the very next year, years later than she needed. Leon, the youngest, may benefit most of all from hearing this now. He has time to structure his accounts perfectly for an early, unlocked retirement. Knowing the whole rulebook young is a quiet superpower for building real freedom. Brooke learned it early and spent her 50s free, on trips and mornings and time. Years from now, Brooke will look back on a decade of freedom she chose to claim. Felicia will look back on the same decade and see a desk she never had to sit at. The difference between those two memories is this one short video watched in time. So let this be the moment you decide to check instead of quietly assuming. The money was identical. Only their understanding of the rules was different. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's sales pitch. If this freed you from a myth that was quietly costing you years, subscribe to Robert Money Logic. Hit the notification bell so the next breakdown reaches you at exactly the right moment. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. Your retirement accounts were built to serve you, not to imprison you until 59. Imagine reaching 59 and realizing you could have started at 52. You would not mourn the money. You would mourn the 7 springs you never got. That specific regret is one you have the power to prevent, starting today. All it takes is the willingness to question a rule you have always taken on faith. Do not let one unread rule steal years from the one life you actually get. Share this with anyone you know who is working just to reach 59.5. They may be one conversation away from reclaiming years they assumed were lost, because nobody should trade their best years for a rule they never actually read. The rulebook has always had a second half. Now you know exactly where to look. Freedom in retirement is rarely about having more. It is about knowing what you have. Felicia had freedom in her accounts for years. She just never knew it was there. Do not let that be your story. The knowledge is free, and the payoff is your life. So check the rules, build your bridge, and take back the years the myth tried to steal.